So this week we are going to be talking about a couple of things. One is Pope John Paul II and some of his encyclicals about the theology of the body. And the other is going to be about the Francis Lloyd Webber musical, The Phantom of the Opera, and how certain things in those two things relate. So we're going to open up with playing you one of the songs that is one of the songs from The Phantom of the Opera.
No more talk of darkness, forget these wide-eyed fears. I'm here, nothing can harm you, my words will warm and calm you. Let me be your freedom, let daylight dry your tears. I'm here with you, beside you, to guard you and to guide you.
Say you love me every waking moment. Turn my head with talk of summertime. Say you need me with you now and always. Promise me that all you say is true. That's all I ask of you.
Let me be your shelter, let me be your light. You're safe, no one will find you, your fears are far behind you.
All I want is freedom, a world with no more night, and you always beside me, to hold me and to hide me.
Then say you'll share with me one love, one lifetime. Let me lead you from your solitude. Say you need me with you here beside you. Anywhere you go, let me go too. Christine, that's all I ask of you.
Share with me one love, one lifetime. Say the word and I will follow you.
Share each day with me, each night, each morning.
Say you love
You
me.
know I do. Love me, that's all I ask of you. Love me, that's all I ask of you.
My name is August Klein, and this is the St. Anne Youth Ministry Podcast. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Pater noster, qui es in celis, sanctificetur nomen tuum. Adveniat regnum tuum, fiat voluntas tua, sicut in cielo et in terra. Panem nostrum quotidianum da nobis odie. Et dimite nobis debita nostra, sicut et nos dimitimus debitoribus nostris. Et ne nos inducas in tentationem, sed libera nos a malo. Amen. Sancta Anna, ora pro nobis. Sancta Ioannis Paulus Secundum, ora pro nobis. Sancta Augustini, ora pro nobis. Nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. So over the last, probably about 2 weeks ago, roughly, it was that Maru, she's our CIA coordinator, and myself were taking this Theology of the Body course through the Junipero Institute. And this is an institute, it's a project of the Diocese of Fort Worth that you can sign up with them to attend classes, to learn more about the faith, to learn how to catechize, learn about catechesis in general. It was a very good program that the diocese is running to help us be able to know and grow in our faith. So the Theology of the Body, for those who don't know, is a series of lectures given by Pope John Paul II during his Wednesday audiences. It talks about the body. It talks about what human sexuality is for. It talks about the dignity of the human person, why a person can't be used. It talks about contraception. It talks about why the resurrection of the body is necessary. So if it's one of those things, if you get a chance, it's a really good thing for you to go and read and to learn more about what the body is meant for and what is described as being used for in Scripture. Now, we were taking these classes, and it was right after, I believe, the last class we took, but before we wrote the paper that I had that was due this last Monday. But around this time, my kids had seen it before, but I went ahead and showed them the Phantom of the Opera again, the 2004 film with Gerard Butler. Now, when we were watching it, there were actually a lot of really good parts in it that I had not thought about before, but how it really, so much of what happens there relates directly to stuff that John Paul II was saying about the body in these talks. So throughout the show, I'm giving examples. I'm asking kids about things that certain characters are doing, things that the Phantom's doing, things that others are doing, why they should or shouldn't be doing certain things. And I asked them why we don't like when certain people do things or why they might have been doing certain things. So for those who don't know the story of the Phantom of the Opera, I'll give you a quick synopsis of it. Essentially, these two guys they worked in a scrapyard. They were in the junk business, and they come into a decent amount of money. They buy this opera. They're trying to move up in society, but when they do so, they have this Phantom who wants them to keep a certain box open for them, and he wants to give them a certain salary, which they think is ridiculous. And because of certain accidents that always happen over the years, their prima donna, La Colada, leaves. And because she's their prima donna, because of the way she was, there was not an understudy for her, no one to take over. So what happens is you have this young girl, Christine, whose father was a famous violinist back when. And she's been an orphan since then. That she has been taught by a mysterious person, no one knows who, so it was the Phantom, how to sing. And she does very well. So she leads the play they have for her, and everyone really enjoys her singing. Everyone enjoys her performance. She becomes very popular. So when she does this, she ends up being reacquainted with an old childhood friend named Raoul, who has become the Count de Chagny. And he's become a new patron of the theater, and he's helping support the theater and the arts and stuff like that. And they rekindle their friendship and starts turning into a romance. But at the same time, the Phantom, having her succeed the way she has, he kind of claims success for his own and by extension her, because she's more or less his avenue to express himself. Well, she gets caught in this in between, her feelings for the Phantom, who's kind of been there, she's known him, and she has this kind of like passionate, desire for him. And then Raoul, who is this more, not quite fraternal, but this more, she has this deep-seated relationship with him. And through the course of it, various things happen, but the Phantom ends up making her choose between the two of them, and he ends up having somewhat of a commanding, dominating relationship with her, whereas Raoul wants to have a relationship with her for her good, not because of something he gets out of it, but he has a genuine love for her. So that's roughly the synopsis, very short, of what the Phantom of the Opera is. Now, for the particulars of the movie, there was a part I played in the beginning. And I don't really want to address that right now because that will come in later. There's going to be better context later. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the phantom and what happens after Christine's first role is Raul reintroduces himself to her. They become acquainted and they're going to go out for a while just to celebrate. And then when he leaves, the phantom locks her room from outside and inside. You can't get in, you can't get out. And then he beckons Christine to come through a mirror. And then then you have one of their big musical numbers. They go down. And some of the song he sings, a lot of their exposition, a lot of their discussion, who they are is revealed through song. So some of his lyrics, his songs begins by saying, "Sing once again with me our strange duet. My power over you grows stronger yet. And though you turn from me to glance behind, the phantom of the opera is there inside your mind." So the Phantom of the Opera is admitting like right away that he has to some extent been manipulating her, violating her personhood, trying to use her for his own ends. She ends up saying during the song, she says, "I am the mask you wear," to which he responds, "It's me they hear." So it's not that he doesn't even see her really as being her own person going out and trying to make something of herself. She is the way that he expresses himself through her because he can't physically go in front of people himself. He's phantom, he's scarred, and we'll get more into that later. So they get down into his little abode, and it goes from what he wants her to do for him to the outside to what he wants her to be with him. And he starts telling her, nighttime sharpens, heightens each sensation, stirs and awakens imagination. Silently the senses abandon their defenses. Slowly, gently, night unfurls its splendor. Grasp it, sense it, tremulous and tender. And he goes on and he constantly uses these lyrics which talk of surrendering your sensations, surrendering to your urges. And this is really what he's playing on with Christine is give yourself into these senses, these feelings, these emotions that bring you to me. Now, Pope St. John Paul II urges that people aren't just to be given to each other to fulfill some sort of carnal desire. Nearly the first third of the Theology of the Body really has a lot to do with what Jesus means when he talks about the Pharisees and Sadducees approach him and ask about can a man divorce his wife for any reason? And Jesus refers back to it, says, Moses allowed you to do this because your heart is so hard, but from the beginning it wasn't so. So the first third of the Theology of the Body is what Jesus means by in the beginning. So here, John Paul II, he talks about man and woman being a mutual gift of self, one for the other, and that we can do this consciously. However, the phantom is encouraging Christine to give her mind and thoughts over to her passions and her feelings, to not have this command over them that God gave us when he gave us the breath of life. It is often said that we should subject our desires to our will, our feelings to our will, rather than subject our will to our desire, which is what the phantom is I'm trying to get Christine to do. So he finishes in a way which is starkly contrasted later. He says, floating, falling, sweet intoxication. Touch me, trust me, savor each sensation. Let the dream begin, let your darker side give in to the power of the music that I write, the power of the music of the night. You alone can make my song take flight. Help me make the music of the night. So in this, the phantom reveals that the feelings he has for Christine aren't really for her good. It's really more to fulfill what he calls the music of the night. And a lot of times this can be referenced to his perception of what a loving relationship is. And we'll get into more why he has this perception later on. But she's like a symbol of this relationship he never had, this relationship that he wants, this loving relationship. But I said, it goes, he doesn't love her as much as he loves what she can do for him. There's a difference between those two things. We say I love a person, do I love them or do I love how they make me feel? Do I love them or do I love what they do for me? So when you look at a person, when he looks at her as what you can do for me, we end up reducing the person in our eyes. This is Pope John Paul II says this is having the reductive look for a person, to reduce them to not who they are, but the end that they can achieve for you. For those, because I'm sure everyone that believes slavery is a very bad thing. This is what was this is what made slavery so wrong, and socialism as well, is the fact that we reduce the person to something other than the person. We reduce the person to the ends or value that's achieved out of them. Now, after some other incidents, the Phantom helps Christine get another role in the show by ruining it for someone else. Now, she gets a role, and then during the show that they have, he ends up killing one of the workers, and people run. And then Christine flees with Raul, actually, at this point, outside to kind of escape the situation because she feels bad about it. She knows who did it. And she tells Raul about the Phantom. Raul's skeptical. He doesn't really believe the Phantom exists, and actually doesn't for a little bit until he sees him later on. But when he doesn't believe her, she says, Raul, I've seen him. Can I ever forget that sight? Can I ever escape from that face? So distorted, deformed, it was hardly a face in that darkness. But his voice filled my spirit with a strange, sweet sound. In that night, there was music in my mind, and through music, my soul began to soar, and I heard as I've never heard before. So she talks about him being real, there being this kind of darkness to him and everything, but still this kind of draw and desire for him. And we kind of know that this is something sin does anyway. Sin is ugly and it's horrible, and there's nothing good in it. But a lot of times sin has this thing where it's darkness and evil wrapped up in this kind of, not really a beauty, but there's something that just draws you in. And especially when it comes to theology of the body, it really dresses itself up so it's something that you don't, it hides what it is. And so then we go to the clip we opened with. This is where that kind of song takes place. And as opposed to the Phantom says, no, surrender to me, let your feelings take hold, help my song take flight. The Phantom is very big on, it's my song. So Raul responds again. He says, no more talk of darkness, forget these wide-eyed fears. I'm here, nothing can harm you, my words will warm and calm you. Let me be your freedom, let daylight dry your tears. I'm here with you, beside you, to guard you and to guide you. So rather than asking Christine what she can do for him, he instead asks what he can do for her. He goes, let me be your shelter. Let me be your light. You're safe. No one will find you. Your fears are far behind you. Raul is treating her not according to what she can do for him, but he's asking, what can I do for you? What can I do to make you feel safe? What can I do to rescue you? What can I do to make you happy? Raul is wanting to give of himself rather than expect her to do something or give something to him. Now, what Christine asks of him is, all I want is freedom, a world with no more night. Kind of wanting to escape the situation she's in. Ultimately, the request of both of them for the other is, anywhere you go, let me go too. And then, whereas Phantom, what he wanted Christine to stay where he was. He didn't want her going anywhere else. So even afterwards, if you watch the thing, Raul ends up respecting her fears, even though he doesn't believe them to be founded. He believes there is no Phantom, and it's all a figment of her imagination. So that says something right there too, that he's willing to do for this young girl, good for her, even though he possibly thinks she's off a rocker, that she thinks there's a ghost in here. But I think they also at times accepted a little bit more, that people sometimes bought into the supernatural a little bit more. Not like in as far as the faith, but as far as like ghosts, phantoms, stuff like that. But one of the things he does for her is he wants to celebrate their engagement. They get engaged at this point, and he wants to celebrate it. But Christine, because of fear of the Phantom, doesn't want it publicly known. No, unbeknownst to her, he already knows because he saw them get engaged. But she's trying to keep it a secret because of her fears. And Raul respects that, because what was the response? He says, I can only hope I will understand in time. And she says the same thing at the same time. I can only hope that you will understand in time. So despite the fact that he thinks that it's ridiculous, it's silly, he goes along with it. And he says, no, as long as you feel uncomfortable about it, goes, I'm not going to go around telling everybody because it makes you feel unsafe. It makes you feel sad. And the whole point of me wanting to be with you is to make you feel safe and make you feel secure. So if me wanting to celebrate this is going to cause you discomfort, goes, I'm not going to do it. So like we said, goes, unlike the Phantom, Raoul's main concern is her happiness. Now, when he does realize the Phantom is real, because Phantom finally shows up just blatantly in front of everybody, dressed as a Mask of the Red Death, the Edgar Allan Poe story. Raoul does get this idea that, all right, well, I can capture him. We can kill him. This is how we can make you safe. Because honestly, yeah, because the Phantom probably would have followed them if they had left. But he, I guess, arrogantly thought he could take that upon himself. Now, that doesn't mean he doesn't love Christine and everything. It's just when this thing became real for him, he thought it's something he could handle. And despite the fact that Christine already knew how real it was, there was a disagreement over how grave of a threat he was. And actually, in the book, he ends up being a lot more of a threat than he is in the movie, some of the things he threatens to do. So what Raoul does is primarily offer himself to save Christine. Pope John Paul II, he calls this the gift of self that we are supposed to have in the very beginning. We are supposed to offer ourselves for each other for the good of the other. And this is kind of like our original condition before the fall. Now, the Phantom of the Opera is told in somewhat romantic language. And so we shouldn't really idealize that we should face this kind of challenge for it to be true love. We can love each other and have that love for each other without these huge, dramatic, phantom or war or whatever, stories that go along with it. But we can just give ourselves in heroic ways in everyday life. This is really kind of typically what we do when we give ourselves as a gift of self. It's not the great grand gestures. It is in the heroic everyday gestures that we give ourselves. So, but what we need to do is we do need to be careful that we don't just let romantic feeling guide us. Because there are a lot of people that have ill intent, like the Phantom, who can put on a show to make one think that they have your good at heart, when really they want to use you for their own ends. Christine, throughout the show, she has trouble deciding who she should spend her life with because of this, because the Phantom uses her feelings to manipulate her to bring her into some sort of sense of owing him, or she isn't any good on her own, that he's the one that's doing things for her good, even though when he's doing it for his own. And she gets confused by this because, again, she's listening to her emotions, not to the, look at it, who is really has my good at heart. And she, for a second there, she chooses the person who, like a lot of people do today, where we choose the person who stirs our passions rather than the one that necessarily works for our good. So it commonly seems, and it's kind of hard to argue against this case, that you've probably heard the phrase "nice guys finish last." It kind of has to do with the fact that when you have the nice guys or girls, a lot of times they want to do things for your good, and the other is just trying to. But the one who does a good job of trying to convince the person, the one who manipulates the feelings, to make it look like they're the one that's doing that. And a lot of times we fall for this because we get addicted to these feelings a lot, and this is our natural state. This is why the fall happened, is because of these coming to the feelings, the passions of what we want, rather than the logically understanding what is it we're supposed to do, what really is our good, and then to use that knowledge and understanding and trust in God to guide our feelings and emotions. Without the foundation of Jesus Christ and God, because we often let our feelings and our passions guide our thought rather than the other way around. Now, one thing we do need to keep in mind is that when people do not put the good of others ahead of their own, they aren't necessarily attempting to be malicious in and of itself, but rather they are broken. They legitimately don't understand what they are doing is wrong. They can't see it. I said earlier that when the Phantom asked Christine to make a song take flight, he is trying to use her to fulfill some sort of misguided fantasy of what a relationship is. The problem is that he doesn't know what a loving relationship is. He was born deformed, hated by his mother, and at one point shares in another song that a sack was his first piece of clothing he remembered receiving. his first piece of clothing was a mask his mother, that he remembers as a mask his mother put on his face to cover it up because she couldn't bear the sight of him. So he was hated, he was abandoned, he was abused before being brought to the opera house. So we can see is that in the same way he was trying to use Christine to fulfill his misguided view of what love is, he himself had been used by others or looked upon by others in this kind of same reductive way that with which he was looking at Christine. So when the Phantom sees Christine in this manner with this reductive look, it's because he's never known another look. He's trying to imagine what it might mean to have a loving relationship, but the image of a loving relationship has been corrupted by his experiences. He doesn't know what the objective loving experience is apart from the use of a person, which with the use of by using a person, it's impossible to have that loving experience. So unfortunately, this means that the horrors that the Phantom suffered because of his physical deformity, they corrupted his heart. They've actually turned him into the thing that he really hates. At the very climax, it's one of the last words of this, one of the very last songs, Christine says, "This haunted face holds no horror for me now. It's in your soul that the true distortion lies." So the Phantom does eventually let Christine and Raoul go, but his dream of happiness, of love, of relationship, it's completely destroyed because he's kind of realizes that whatever he's viewing as a loving relationship, this isn't what it is, but he has nothing to replace it with. So he ends up lamenting, and he says, "It's over now, the music of the night." So the music of the night being this image of this is what he thinks a loving relationship is. Without that, he laments. There's nothing else for him. So without anything to replace it, he's been spurned, he's been rejected by everybody. And and the story goes, like a lot of stories that are secular, we don't really talk about God a lot, but I'm pretty sure it's safe to say that he's really never been exposed to Christ and the love that he has for all of us. And that's the problem, even any sin, we get to this point where even if people who succumb to sins in the flesh, and they start sleeping around everything, at some point the image that we're trying to have, it's going to fall apart. We're not going to be able to keep convincing ourselves forever that this is what love is, and it eventually can destroy us. And the thing is, we have to know Christ. We have to know God. We have to know God's love for us, his infinite forgiveness for us. Because that love which God has for us outside the theology of the body, outside of what we're made for, it's really impossible to replicate that love that God has for us. So that's really going to be it for our podcast today. If you have any questions or comments, you can email me at august@mystand.com. That is august@mystann.com. We are still doing our Knights of Columbus essay contest, looking for anyone who wants to participate in that. And this Saturday, we also have, sorry, not this Saturday, but the next one, it's going to be the first Saturday of the month. So there's going to be adoration after the 7:30 Mass. So I would like to encourage as many youth as would like to come to adoration, 7:30 Mass and adoration. Adoration is an hour, so you'll be there for roughly an hour and a half. Especially for those who are looking for confirmation this next year, it's a way to, if you are serious about wanting to know and love Christ and be in a better relationship with him, this is a really good opportunity to actually start trying to practice that. So anyway, for now, I'd like to close in nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum. Benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen. Sancta Anna, ora pro nobis. Sancta Ioannis Paulus Secundum, ora pro nobis. Sancta Augustini, ora pro nobis. Nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen.